How can you tell when a person is lying? Answer, you can see his lips move. Well, so goes the old joke. But spotting fibbers is really quite easy. Understanding the lie more difficult, and knowing what to do about it. Well, let's look at the truth first. Lies are usually automatic. Firstly, you must have noticed that we simply can't withhold judgment. We react, form a story. Sure, we can revise a first impression, but it takes some training to override impressions and order ourselves to say, I don't have enough information yet. For example, you're at home in the kitchen. You hear a loud noise, to your left, turn and look to the hallway. Your front door has crashed off its hinges and fallen to the floor. Instantly, you have an explanation in your mind, no matter how implausible. I don't know, the frame was under pressure, a strong wind, or some nonsense. Really? You see a tiger in your living room, thrashing its tail. You hear it growl. What comes into your mind? You're asking yourself, do you know somebody keeps pets? Is there a zoo near? Look, this automatic feature is with us for good reason. In life, we have to act, not think, not in words anyway, or at least assess quickly and make a choice. Mostly run like hell. Notice there are no words in this process. We could do this before we were talking humans. The whole listening to words and the creation of speech parts of our mind are add-ons, upgrades in evolution. Since we got by without speaking for 1 million years or more, what was the evolutionary advantage that left the non-talkers dying without passing on their genes? I have to conclude that the big plus was not some altruistic thing like teaching our young or cooperation in hunting, which many of the apes can do without much talk at all. This speech-generating upgrade was surely best for dominating within the tribe and, of course, charming the womenfolk. Any element of truth in both of those goals would certainly be rare. There's strong scientific evidence that we have limited control over what we say, that the calculating process is hidden from our conscious minds. Luckily, we have the will to override that, but it takes thoughtful consideration to hold back. How many times do you say to yourself, I could have said something better, when simply responding in an ordinary conversation? There's a little bit of, it's either gunplay or fireworks, but somebody lied to me about what time he'd be starting. Anyway, as for lie detecting, very few of the supposed tells, those apparent physical gestures and body language, not many of those are of value. Often people who have been wanting to tell you something for some time will be nervous anyway about your response, so may seem twitchy and on edge. Just one of those tells, the rubbing of the itchy nose, that has some kind of a correlation, blood flow and brain activity, but most of them do not. Certainly not that crackpot, looking up, looking down, looking left, looking right. Those head and eye movements relate to a dozen mannerisms that mean nothing, as does the old eye stare. Some believe it's a sign of honesty. It's simply the look of being determined, either falsely or truthfully. If you hope to draw the truth from someone, be careful how you form your questions. We have a tendency to supply the answer we wish to receive within that question, as with, the weather was awful last night. I wasn't going out. Did you? You may receive a different answer if you say, the weather was awful last night. I wasn't going out. Did you find the strength to put on a coat and face the night? Or put forward the answer that you consider a lie, therefore pushing someone into a lie they might not usually tell, just to defend themselves against an accusation. No. As with, I know you haven't been getting much overtime lately. I wouldn't blame you if you borrowed money where you could. All that does is block one possible truth. If the person had, in fact, borrowed some money, if he was about to say, Johnny lent me a bit of cash for the week, it would seem a clumsy coincidence that you, as the questioner, had already picked an answer. Oh, really, he might be expecting you to say, perhaps sarcastically, that was a lucky guess I made. Such needlessly complicated traps are a form of social domination, gaslighting really, or bullying, and do not help in the search for truth. Such empty victories may be pleasing to an imbecile, but never rewarding to an ultimate victor. Keep the questions simple, direct, and never carry any weight with them. What you really want is for someone to tell you an account of events, a story, one that you have little interest in hearing. Open-ended. How was your night, you might ask? What sort of day did you have? You do not want to appear to be a stakeholder in the outcome of anything that may be revealed. If you are dealing with someone you suspect may be a hidden deceiver, his lie may well be buried in a detailed account, most of which is truthful. Listen, but don't expect some gotcha moment. I've been lied to by professionals. Those that make an obvious reveal are rare. An informer once made the mistake of telling me he was considering some options for an alternative passport. He asked if I thought a New Zealand passport might be easier to obtain. I knew at that moment that the investigators had seen me in a library researching old newspapers, but of course they kept their distance. They wanted to know if I was the one looking at other nationalities. They had asked this fool to ask his disguised question, and poorly disguised it was. Yet that told me to be careful in collecting any documentation. But more importantly, this told me he was in debt to the authorities. He was a traitor. The lies that matter, and surprisingly few of them do, are usually buried within a narrative. The more information you have, the better. You want the full day's diary entry, but naturally avoid presenting yourself as some kind of inquisitor. Then, as you wander home with the long account you have been given, at first simply put this story in chronological order, for the lie will not be in the tone of the delivery, but the story itself. Digest the events you have been given. Match that against what you know of human behaviour, and human behaviour is not good. The liar may be better than he knows. His world may be built on the lies he tells himself, the illusions he cherishes, the resentment that burns in his heart. One thing to rely upon with a liar, witting or not, is that the hope is for your downfall, your ruin. Against this, the probability is that the story will only make sense if an event did not happen, or make sense only when you'll be the one harmed, the one cheated. As often, the truth is small, greedy, and reveals the lazy man's shortcut. It is possible that you've crossed paths with the wizard who is setting a complex and elaborate game, but that is almost never the case. Almost always, they're aiming for the simplest double-cross, and don't dismiss what might seem like petty jealousies for motive. The sure way to spot your liar is by seeing if the story adds up in any other way. Your work is the patience to collect the facts with the lightest touch. It may take a little more time than you think that person is actually worth, but you're not the lazy one, are you? The one who has a hope for a 7-point tick list to confirm a lie in seconds, a shortcut. In fact, it would make me suspicious of anyone who even carried the list. They might have reasons not to look down, keep their fingers away from their nose, and make sure their arms are unfolded. Me, I'm secretly lazy, and I'd rather wait for the whole story.